I'll now bring in David.
Sure. So I thought I'd make myself very popular by coming to the Conservative Environment Network and then talk about how the environment's not that important for Conservative voters and what the Conservative Party should do around that issue. So if we look at the top 3 most important issues for Conservative voters, the environment comes about 8th, right? That's compared to 5th for the population at large. If we ask them what the most important issue is, just 1% of Conservative voters in 2019 would say the environment. That's compared to about 8% for the Lib Dems and 10% for Labour. So already organisations like the CEN are pushing, they're pushing upwards hill. This compares to something like, say, 33% for immigration. So the task for Conservative representatives and for organisations like the CEN is to make the environment politically salient for voters. Because as Rebecca just laid out in detail, I've got no legislation to wave about, but as she laid out in detail, there is a record there that the Conservative Party can be proud of. But for most voters, it doesn't quite cut through. That is not the same as saying the issue is not important to them. It's just not the most important. And I think what the Conservative Party need to do is find a way of tying the issues around the environment to other issues that are important. So actually, I said to my mum, I'm doing this panel at the Conservative Party conference on the environment. And she went, oh, the environment? And I was like, well, but last week you were complaining that the river that we walk our dog by was filthy. Or you were talking about the fact that the trees haven't been, mowed properly and there's no birds anymore in the park and all of these things. And, oh yeah, I guess I was. And not every interaction with my mum perfectly fits into an anecdote that I can fit into a panel event, but thankfully that one did. There is no doubt that the Conservative Party voter base, both in 2019 and 2024, is the most climate sceptic. And yet, if you go to some panels at this conference, they will tell you to junk net zero. That is a false path, right? Over half of Conservative voters do believe that we need to, that the climate crisis is real, that global warming is real, and about 40% don't, right? That is a coalition that politicians have to manage. Not my job to tell you how to do that, but it's something you have to do. And this idea that all of these voters that we lost to reform, I've got outed myself there as an impartial academic, but that we lost to reform, were often very supportive of things like Ed Miliband's GB Energy. They quite like the idea that you would have a national state electricity generator that worked in the interest of the British people. And so the Conservative Party has to be very, very clever when it stands up and opposes, and it needs to oppose on points of policy rather than points of principle, because actually the public like this idea of a muscular state that does things for the benefit of the British people. And just because the French do things like that doesn't mean we should discount it instantly, right? We should actually sometimes look at what the French do, because sometimes they get it right. We also need to make sure that we don't frame this as a battle between the environment and economic growth. Because most of our voters, and the voters who went to reform, want to see a balance between the environment and economic growth. They don't want us to jettison the environment in the pursuit of empty GDP that leaves our countryside completely barren. Right? They want to see a balance, and it's not an easy task for Tory MPs. But things like net zero, the idea that we should decarbonise the economy by 2050, has majority support amongst Conservative voters in 2019. The coalition we need to win back, this so-called socially conservative red wall, no, they like the environment and they want to see us protect it. So I guess if I had one message in my 3 minutes, which I note is now closer to 4, sorry Sam, is that actually we turn our back on the environment at our own peril. And it's very easy to bash the environment and get rid of the green crap. But actually, a lot of people like the green crap, and we need to do a conservative way of protecting the environment. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Really helpful overview of where the electorate is on these issues and things that Conservative policymakers need to factor in when thinking about our positioning on these issues.